Okay, so this is inspired by Brexit vote,
Trump?
the rise of Donald Trump, and the Adam Curtis documentary. It's been the other week,
which is called Hyper-Normalization.
Yeah.
Yes. I will admit...
It's on iPlayer, so you can...
Yeah, it's on iPlayer at the moment. I will admit, for full disclosure, I have not watched the new... I've seen Adam Curtis before. I've seen like Enemy in the Caves and The Trap and stuff like that. And some of his Charlie Brooker stuff. But I haven't seen this latest one. So if Luke makes reference to that and I'm just quiet, that's why.
Yeah, on another side note, you should watch Black Mirror or Charlie Brooker stuff as well.
Sponsored by Black Mirror.
Yeah, sponsored by Charlie Brooker.
Sponsored by Charlie Brooker. Okay, so what are we talking about today, Luke?
So, like, around the Brexit debate, it seems to be, like, the number one argument people make is like, oh, it's democracy, people voted for it, therefore we should do it.
Yeah, the Remainers should shut up and just do what the majority says because they're not respecting democracy.
Yeah, it's like democracy is the deciding thing and it's decided, so that's it.
Yep, the majority agree that Brexit is the correct thing to do, therefore we should do Brexit.
Yeah.
And what do you think of that?
I don't know, this is kind of... So we were saying what does that actually add to the arguments?
Yeah, what is... Yeah, if you have a debate between, position A and position B, and position B gets most support, more people believe B than believe A, what does that add to position B, if anything at all? Let's say that position B was otherwise wrong, but most people agreed with it. Does that make it the right thing to do, just because most people agree with it? I'm going to say that sounds stupid. No, of course not.
Yeah.
Of course, the majority decision does not significantly affect the correct decision.
Yeah, it's like it doesn't tell you that it's correct. It just tells you that most people think
it's correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So essentially, this is a sort of like a... We're not going to call it an anti-democracy video, so to speak, but it's seriously considering the flaws in democracy.
Yeah.
Why have it?
It's like such a great thing, and
why is it? Yeah, I mean, why is it? So I think
this used as like the wave to make big decisions when it's obviously
so flawed.
Doesn't produce good decisions as we've seen.
As we've seen with Brexit, to a lesser extent with Trump. Trump obviously hasn't won yet, but his very popularity, the rise of Trump, as you said at the beginning, is another indication of democracy making bad decisions. The common decision, the popular decision, or at least the largest minority view, if not the majority view, being just demonstrably terrible.
Yeah, so you're saying you don't ask if you're ill, you don't take a census of the whole population.
Of the whole population, right? Yeah. You ask a doctor.
Yeah.
Or you ask... Maybe you ask a group of doctors, maybe you get a second opinion. But if all the doctors in the world agree that you should take medicine A, and if all the non-doctors in the world, who are far greater in number, agree you should take medicine B, you go against the majority and you follow what the doctors said.
Yeah.
And
so this is obviously a bad way of making decisions.
Yes, because as what Brexit shows is the overwhelming, pretty much every single expert or informed person in the world said Brexit's a bad idea. The people who said it was a good idea were the people who didn't know much about political science, didn't know much about history, didn't have degrees in economics.
Was it Gove famously was like, oh yeah, we've had enough of experts.
Yes, yeah, we've had enough of what experts think. Let's, despite the fact that they are in fact the experts. So yes, this is what makes democracy a terrible, terrible idea. Even if every expert disagrees with the majority decision, democracy says go with the majority decision, no matter how terrible it is. And it tells you, put up with it, respect it, go with it no matter what you think.
Yeah, it's just like, oh, the pound's crashing, and like it looks like it's the wrong decision from the evidence so far. It's like democracy
but
says,
we have to respect. Yeah, we have to respect the democratic
even with
outcome.
hindsight, you have to carry on because that seems to be the argument that's made.
Yes, you have to carry on with it because that's what people said to do.
So you're saying like, why do we do this?
Yeah.
I think part of it is to sort of get the consent of the people, like the governed, right?
Yeah. The idea being that a government isn't legitimate if it doesn't have the consent of its people. And this is a way of taking consent. So if the experts had said, no, let's remain, but the people did not consent to that, or at least the largest minority of people consent to that, then it wouldn't be a legitimate political move because you don't have consent to the population.
It's like, the idea that the government represents the people and takes decisions on behalf of them, right? Yeah,
that actually raises a point that we didn't plan for in our note-taking, I don't think, which is that there's a big difference between, a representative conception of democracy and a delegatory conception of democracy. And we tend to think of it as representative. We tend to think, the politicians should just do whatever we want, basically. They should just take a census and whatever our majority view is, they should do that. Whereas if you think about the case of something like the doctor example, right? Do you have consent in that case? Well, yeah, you do, because you consent to do what the doctor tells you. Why? Because you recognise the doctor has the knowledge and experience and authority to make the right decision. So you consent to follow whatever they suggest. What we have in our democracy at the moment is a really weird situation where rather than consenting to be governed by the decisions of the experts, we only consent to be governed by the views of the less educated, less informed majority.
You think this is
that's weird.
Like trust, right? We don't trust, well, like the majority of people don't trust the government to make the best decisions.
Yeah. Which may be a wise decision. I wouldn't trust them either, but I also wouldn't trust the majority.
No.
So, is democracy a solution to that problem? Probably not. But it might be something that's done in response to it. It just doesn't work. Yeah. And we were also thinking about how, so we were talking about, the role of consent. We're also talking about just people like to feel like they are shaping the decisions that shape their lives.
Yeah.
They just like to feel like they're part of the process. They don't want to feel like they're slaves to someone else's decisions.
Yeah. They don't want to feel like someone else is in control. It's like,
even if that
some control and involvement in the process.
Even if that person, if they were in control, would make better decisions than you do, because they would make more informed decisions, they would make more rational decisions, more considered decisions, basically educated decisions. You still want to have a say. I mean, why? I mean, and that's like going to the doctor and saying, well, yeah, I know you've seen all this data, I know you've done like 10 years of training. But I'd like to go away with a textbook on medicine and, come up with my own mind as well, and then see if I agree with you. Say, it doesn't matter if you agree with the doctor, just do what the doctor says. So our attitude to democracy is actually quite... It's an attitude that would look irrational in almost any other situation.
Yeah. It seems to be just for big, important...
Yeah, this is weird as well, because it's not like democratic decision making isn't somehow less important than the doctor, right? It's more important. These decisions, affect the lives and livelihood and well-being of millions and millions and millions of people, and you are entrusting them to people who don't know much about what's going on. And why are you doing that? Because of some principle of democracy, some principle of self-governance and self-determination. As long as we all vote, as long as we all agree to start a nuclear war, it's okay. Rather than just saying, let's not do that. So, which may be what voting Trump is like. As long as we all agree to be governed by a madman, it's okay.
So you're saying maybe the solution would be to educate everyone and inform everyone sufficiently so they could make.
Yes, so it seems like democracy isn't, what we're saying so far hasn't amounted to the claim that democracy is fundamentally broken. It just amounts to the claim that democracy doesn't work, but that's contingent on the empirical fact that people aren't very well educated and aren't very well informed about the decisions that they're making. So the obvious response historically to this sort of objection has been to say, why not just educate everyone more then? Why not give them that expertise and that insight, and then they can make informed decisions? The problem with that is, it's really, really hard to do.
We're not saying that people are stupid, we're saying
they don't have the specialist knowledge to make these kind of decisions, yes.
Yeah.
They're not economists, they're not political scientists, they don't have degrees in history, they don't have the specialist knowledge to make the decision. But they could do, in principle. But as you were saying earlier, I think before we started this, that it's really, really difficult to teach someone to have both a practical role in society and an administrative role.
Yeah. It's like, it takes 10 years plus to be a doctor, and you don't train everyone to be a doctor.
You don't train everyone to be a doctor because no one has the time to do that. You get some people to be doctors and some people to do other things. So the idea with democracy is, okay, you can't, it's bad because people aren't educated enough to make the right decisions, or aren't educated in the right areas to make the right decisions.
Yes,
but you can't really train them to do that because it's like training everyone to be a doctor. That someone needs to do something else.
So, it's like everyone agrees that we shouldn't train everyone to be doctors, but it seems to be we shouldn't train some people to make decisions about the country first.
Yes, we don't want to train everyone to be doctors. That's just crazy. But let's train us all to be international diplomats. Which is probably even harder. And again, this is not to assume, of course, that the government really do know what they're doing.
Yeah.
This is just the claim that neither does anyone else. So democracy isn't any better than handing it over to the elite. And I think one thing I did want to bring up here is the fact that the evidence seems to be that we don't really care about democracy as much as we claim to. So so we were thinking about sort of like the reaction to Brexit, and you consent to go along with the outcome of the election, but only if it's what you wanted. If it's not, then you tend to go. I mean, you might be Labour. The Tories get in. Do you then consent to do whatever the Tory government says? No, you resist them because you disagree with them. And that seems like the rational thing to do to me. It seems like if you believe that, say Brexit is wrong or the Tories are wrong, and then they win, you don't just say, okay, then I'll go along with what I think is wrong. You should fight for what you think is right. You should resist that government. You should resist Brexit. You shouldn't respect democracy. You should push for what you believe in. So it seems like our reaction to things like Brexit and our reaction to things like the Tory landslide in the last election demonstrate that we're not actually that democratic, and that unless the majority happens to agree with us, and then we evoke democracy as a great reason to go along with that decision. And it seems like actually that kind of skepticism about democracy is perfectly correct. We shouldn't just play along with the majority decision. We should resist or disagree. So you were going to talk about oversimplicity.
So following on from the fact that everyone can't be experts in everything, right? It means that the complex reality has to be simplified down to something that can be argued amongst non-experts. Yeah.
Because they're the ones making the decision. You've got to make it accessible to them. But because they're not experts, you've got to simplify it, water it down for them. Yeah.
And because public perception is the public opinion is the number one important thing in democracy. It means it's not being right, it's being having people think that you're right.
It's being common.
It's convincing people that you're right.
It's convincing people you're right, but it's convincing non-experts that you're right. So you can't use, complicated facts and figures, and politicians don't talk like that anymore. If they ever did, they don't give you sort of very complicated empirical arguments for their cases, for their policies. They water it down to broad ideals and buzzwords and things that you can get behind.
It's just like, so the stuff in the Middle East and Syria, it's all kind of, we're fighting terrorists, so we need to bomb the terrorists, and it's like, obviously the reality is a lot more complicated than that.
Just watch the I think it was a Channel 4 video, like who are we fighting in Syria or something like that. And it's quite brilliant because it's just a 5-minute summary of what's going on, and there are there's a dozen different factions and they're all fighting each other, and diplomatically it's a complete mess.
It's like you can't have your argument about that with the public because it's too complicated, right?
Yeah, they don't have degrees in political science, they don't have degrees in history, they don't have degrees in Middle Eastern politics.
Yeah. So you have to make a story or a narrative.
You have to give them a narrative. You have to give them, terrorists bad, we good. Terrorists did 9/11. Therefore they're all evil and we should go and bomb them all. It's very complicated. Many different factions, many different ideologies and religions, and there's so much history to it and economics. But boil it down to us and them. Fit it into a nice, neat narrative, hero and villain. We are the protagonists, they are the antagonists. And our point is, the only reason you have to do this is because of democracy, because you need the people to engage with politics, but they're not experts, which is already a problem. This exacerbates the problem.
Like it's not the real reality, it's like the perceived reality.
Yeah.
You create this fake reality. This is what this Adam Curtis documentary is kind of all about.
Yes. Yeah,
you create this fake reality which everyone lives in.
Yeah, because
it's too horrendously complicated to anyone.
You have to give them something. But if we didn't have to worry about democracy, if people weren't voting, and only the experts make decisions, then you wouldn't need to propagate this oversimplified view of things.
You could kind of make.
Yeah. You could make decisions based on the reality, not the perception of the reality, which is what democracy does, because of the difficulty of educating everybody to a sufficient level to understand the big picture, the real picture. So
So it kind of shapes the whole world and news and media and everything, right? Is through this lens of shaping public opinion.
It gives the media enormous power because the media hugely influences public opinion, public perception of reality, and because it's democracy, that perception of reality dominates.
Because that's the most important thing, right?
Yeah.
Perception of reality, public opinion. It gives media a huge sway over the direction of the government and stuff because they control, influences public opinion, right?
Yeah. So it seems pretty damn broken. I mean, it seems you can't just educate everyone. That doesn't work. That's like making everyone doctors. We're not really suggesting a solution yet, really. I mean, maybe sort of only allowing experts to make decisions, but then who decides who's an expert?
Yeah.
Maybe you limit democracy to only those with the right qualifications and the right knowledge to make good decisions, but then there's going to be bias in the selection process.
Yeah, then I think you get down the road of you need to have read this, and then you sort of have a bias in the reading.
Yes, so you have to read all of this left-wing media. And everyone goes, well, that's great, except then the right wing complain that it's biased against them. Not really much. It's not really much of a solution. It's a very broken system.
So not only does it lead to bad decisions, it also changes the whole way we talk about the world, right?
Yeah. Yes, I mean, yeah, that's sort of like there's this, yeah, the whole media thing and the impact on public opinion speaks to this much wider, more fundamental impact of democracy, which is we all live in this fantasy world.
Yes, it's not just making. It's not just the decision making. It's like the
every single thing, every way we negotiate our lives, every sphere of our experience is shaped by the way we see the world and the narrative that we're in, and that because of democracy, because people need the oversimplified picture, that's a complete fantasy world we're living in. So democracy has doomed us all to a make-believe world.
Yeah, as far as solutions, I kind of thought maybe we could just have a robot or an AI in charge.
Yeah, this is the idea. A lot of people are talking seriously about this. Well, the experts are anyway, about the possibility of being governed one day by super intelligent AIs.
I feel like people won't like this.
People won't like this at all, but
I think it's worse than if you told people you can't vote and these experts are just going to make all the decisions. They'd be angry, but I think if you told them this robot's going to make all the decisions, they'd be like crazy, right?
But then that's ironic because the point of this podcast is to talk about the flaws in democracy and the flaws in common opinion. I think the common opinion would be that's crazy. You can't have a robot ruling it, but that's just wrong. I think. they just don't understand the possibilities of AI. You could create an AI with no self-interest, with no biases.
Yeah, I think you have, even if you had experts, you still have I think ego come into it.
Yeah, ego always comes into it. A machine, you can give it no ego.
Yeah, maybe you have bias from experience.
And you might not like it. You might think, oh God, I'm a slave to an AI. But you know what? The decisions that AI make will make your life so much nicer. Whereas if whereas you had power over Brexit, you have power over Trump. And you know what? They're going to ruin your life.
This kind of comes down to it as well. It's like you'd rather... I don't know if people would rather be involved and end up having a worse outcome, or
than be governed by some benevolent master.
But have a better outcome.
And maybe that comes down to how much of a consequentialist you are, because I mean the consequentialist thinking would just be, well, if it's a better world, let's just have the AIs, let's have the experts in charge, let's have the benign dictator, But if you have more of a moral philosophy based on principles, you might think, no, there's a principle to democracy, there's a principle to self-governance, and it's worth any consequence. It's worth Trump, it's worth Brexit to hold on to that. I just don't see what the appeal is. I mean, do you seriously think? I mean, it comes back to the whole. You could use the doctor example again. Say, do you really think democracy? I mean, in that scenario, it would sound crazy to say, at least I decided to take the wrong drugs. At least I was part of the decision-making process, even if I ended up dying as a result of it. Isn't it obviously more rational just to do what the doctor says? And again, with nuclear war, we all, let's say the majority agree to nuclear war. Is it really better to live in a post-apocalyptic world that you chose than to live in a beautiful utopia that an AI gave you? Right? I mean, really, when you think about it, do you really think democracy is worth it? When you really think about what could happen?
I think this is probably why we keep it, right? Because people do prefer to choose a how.
Which is ironic, because we're keeping democracy because the majority think it's great. I mean, but what if they're just wrong? Yeah. I mean, okay, a couple of things that we sort of skipped, I think, that we can sort of throw in at the end. Because we are pretty much at the end, I think. So in an ideal world, it would at least be a majority. But the way we have it is sort of it's not even that. It's the smallest minority, and everyone else is being told to just put up with it and follow them. And that seems like that's immensely vulnerable to corruption and abuse. If you can be the angriest, loudest, most vocal minority, then you get to force everyone else to go in line with what you say. Okay.
Is that it?
Any other final point you want to make?
Any other business?
Any AOB? I think we're good. I think we've shown people why they should be fascists.
I think it does come down to like people want to have control, right?
Yeah. I mean, I identify with that. You know, I think, yeah, I probably would feel pretty horrible.
People don't like being told they're not informed or whatever.
Yeah. They don't like being told that, but it's true, and they're not informed. And they don't like being told that their politics is a huge, oversimplified fantasy land, but it is.
It feels like an insult when someone says you're not.
Well, here's something sort of like.
But it's not. It's like.
Yeah, it's not an insult to be told you're not a doctor, so you don't prescribe medicine.
Yeah, it's not.
Right?
Yeah, it's not. Yeah, told you haven't spent 10+ years studying this. Or whatever.
Yeah, so you don't get to decide.
But yeah, you should. Like,
yeah.
You're not expected to be informed.
Yeah.
Right?
So what is it about politics, apart from this idea that we like to feel like we're in control of our own destiny? Yeah. I mean, yeah, like I was going to say, I mean, I can definitely understand that feeling. It would feel horrible. Especially to be told something like, maybe there's a class aspect in it, because I don't think people like to be told things like, you know those better educated people than you?
Yeah, I think
who went to those fancy schools? They can control your life because they're better informed.
Yeah.
You go, well,
I think
they are.
Yeah. It's like you're sort of saying you're not the elite.
Yeah, you're not the elite, yeah. Like when you take away democracy, you're stratifying society.
If someone else is making the decisions, you're being put like below them.
You're not worthy of that, yeah. And but that's kind of true. It's just we don't like to hear it.
So like with the doctor example, you'd say, oh yeah, you're better informed. But
yeah, we find it harder in this case. Yeah. Anyway, I think we should probably leave it there. Probably, So vote Trump.
Yeah, vote Trump.
Don't really vote Trump. Okay, just throw that out there at the end. But don't vote Hillary either. She's rubbish.